to What's the Big Idea with Bo Wills. Join Bo as he interviews candidates for the Walton County Board of Commissioners 2024 election. We'll cover races in Districts 1, 3, and 5. In District 1, incumbent William Boots McCormick is up against Dan Curry and Trey Nick. District 3 sees Brad Drake facing Chuck Wilder in the primary, with the winner going up against Democrat Sean Roll. District 5 has Tony Anderson competing with Barbara Morano, Dr. Edmund Zelodia, and Democrat Michael Miller.
In Episode 2, Bo interviews Chuck Wilder. Chuck is a longtime Walton County resident with a background in information technology, law enforcement, and waste management, which gives him a unique perspective as he steps into the political arena.
This is a candidate interview with Chuck Wilder on What's the Big Idea with me, Bo Wills. And, you know, kind of as I'm trying to allude in the title, this is just a platform where I get to sit down with people who I think are interesting for whatever reason or another and ask them questions about what's going on with them. And really just, you know, I'm an average person. You know, I'm seeking information to help me make better decisions. And you're running for a seat on the Board of County Commissioners, District 3. Before we get into all of that, though, just tell me a little bit about where you're from and how you got here.
I'm a fifth-generation Walton County. I was born in Freeport, Florida. Raised in Freeport, went to Freeport High School. Have wonderful memories growing up here over the last 58 years. And have been blessed to in business to where it's time for me to give back.
You grew up here in Freeport. You went to Freeport High School, graduated.
Yeah.
What would you do right after graduation?
I went to work offshore. I worked for a company out of New Orleans, running the intercoastal. We ran coal barges from New Orleans to Port St. Joe. I ended up with a couple different boat companies, and ultimately I ended up on the West Coast for 5 years, working for the world's largest privately held offshore company, a company called Crowley Maritime, where I rose to the ranks and became a senior coordinator for them. At one time, while I was in San Francisco, I was over Northern California, Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. Got homesick, came back home. I assisted in running the shipyard in Freeport up until 1997. I got into the IT business. Put the first dial-up internet in Freeport. It ultimately failed in 2003. Went to work for the Sheriff's Department as a computer crimes investigator and their IT administrator. I was hired away from the Sheriff's Department by a waste company. And that decision changed my life. That waste company was out of Freeport. It was acquired by a larger company. I ended up going to work for a company ultimately in 2009 after the bottom fell out of everything in real estate. Went to work for a company called Disposal Services out of Panama City. We built it from 2 trucks and 108 cans to we have 50 trucks and over 2,000 cans. I cover 13 counties. And I gained an equity position and ended up buying the company outright last April. I have a partner. My partner and I own the company, and that's my profession.
That's your day job?
That's my day job. But I'm very blessed that I've got an incredible staff that all are, in my opinion, rock stars, and they allow me to feel important, but they don't really need me day to day. And this is probably the ideal situation for me because 4 years ago, I couldn't have done it. 4 years from now, I may not want to do it. But at this point in time, all the stars have lined up where this is my opportunity.
Right. The job description is described as a part-time job.
It's a full-time job with part-time pay.
Right.
Is really what it is.
Right.
I think a county commissioner, you're never off the clock. You are a public servant, and if the public has a need, you don't turn the close sign off until it's convenient for you. You're kind of available to the public when they need you.
Have you ever ran for any elected office before?
No, I assisted a family member in his bid for county commissioner in 2020. I just basically handled social media for him, and I took care of his treasury reports. And outside of that, that was almost enough to dissuade me from ever wanting to be in politics. But as you get older and you get closer to the inner workings of things that go on in a county, you start questioning. You question things. Why was this decision made? Why was that? Or why was this one not made? And you start asking questions. And if you don't get satisfactory answers, you have to make a decision to either vote for someone who aligns with you, or you run yourself. And that's where I got to, was I didn't see enough physical responsibility going on in the county. And
are there any particular examples that you can talk about?
Yeah, and I've tried to stay away from it because it's kind of a hotly contested issue in my campaign. Being in the trash business, I'm very familiar with trash and garbage. And one of the things, all the way back to 2006, I had questions as to why the county didn't put out its residential garbage service to bid. Well, I had a very small voice, and I was pretty much dismissed. Now, as I've gotten older and a little more well-heeled, I do have a voice. And historically, it's in 30 years, it's never been put out to bid.
Who manages that contract?
The county manages it. Ultimately, it falls on the county administrator. And
well, I guess what I mean is, who's handling residential disposal right now?
The company that currently handles it is Waste Management. And Waste Management has done a great job. I don't have an issue with Waste Management as a company. I have an issue with our government not being good stewards and making sure we're getting the best price possible. And when you allow one company to dominate a franchise, you don't have competition. They are guaranteed the service of Walton County by franchise. So if you don't price check it from time to time, how do you know you're getting the best price? And I couldn't get enough people within the county to care.
Why do you think that is?
Well, there are some obvious reasons. I don't want to accuse anybody, but there was a direct conflict, and it's on his LinkedIn profile. You can go look at it. Larry Jones served as county commissioner on his LinkedIn profile from 2009 to 12. Simultaneously, he was government liaison for Waste Management. That is a conflict of interest. Even though he did very publicly claim that he'd been fired from Waste Management. I don't know anybody who waves a flag and is proud of being fired, but that to me almost seemed like a ruse. But anyway, lo and behold, it did go out for bid. I believe it was 2015, and then the RFP was rescinded, and the contract extension was given, and that was by Mr. Jones as well. So anyway,
is there a reason given as to why the RFP was rescinded?
None that I'm aware of. I'm sure that there is a reason, but I can't answer that. That would fall on Mr. Jones to answer that question, but he's not here anymore, and we've got a change of the guards. So I thought, okay, this is an opportunity to bring this up, and I started talking about it over 4 years ago because I knew the contract had already been renewed again.
And is that contract public information?
I'm sure it is. Yeah, it's all public record.
How much is it?
Well, the thing is, it's hard to precisely nail it down, and the reason why, it is based off of so much per household, based off of the GIS data, and it has a built-in increase based off of the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. So 1 year it may go up 5%, it may go up 8%, it may go up 1%, but it's going up. And it's time to reset the mechanism and see, let the open market decide, what the price is. So again, not knocking Waste Management service. They're just a private, a public company. And Their job is to do what they're allowed to do. So I did made some rounds to the county commissioners to try to educate them on the fact that this was coming back up and it needed to go out for bid. A lot of them did not realize that this had been going on for this long. Some were interested in more than others, but ultimately it got done. So as far as I'm concerned, my job in that is over.
The RFP got...
It just got voted on the last meeting.
I see.
To be pushed out.
Will disposal services be bidding on the contract?
No, I'm in the trash business, and again, trash, garbage, people kind of intertwine those two things, but they are very, very different. And the analogy that I often use is if you have a need for a Chevrolet, and I tell you I'm in the car business, and I'm a Ford dealer, I can't give you a Chevrolet, The trash business, I deal with construction debris,
roll-off containers.
Right. I do not do residential front load, rear load, or compactors. I don't do that. Occasionally, we will have a roll-off dumpster out at an event or something that does get MSW, but those are few and far in between and very unique issues. So I have nothing to gain in this other than I just wanted to see it go out for bid for the taxpayers of Walton County as a taxpayer in Walton County. So,
well, it's something I hear rumbled about every now and then is that we don't have a recycling program.
No, but there's two sides of that coin. There's an old saying: everybody wants to be green until it costs green, And the last contract on the MSW contract for Walton County, it was written into the contract that they would be blue bag pickup for recycles. Well, that proved to be not profitable at all, and the contractor went back to the county and got an exclusion for that, and it stopped. I know the county puts out their recycling trailers. It goes up to the county landfill. There are people who recycle there. At what level, I have no idea. But I do know that when the cost of oil goes up, people recycle plastics a lot more. When the price of oil goes down, it's cheaper to manufacture than to recycle. So there's this delicate balance, I do believe that we should do as much recycling as possible. It pains me just to know how much building materials we put into landfills every day.
Right.
The biggest problem that we have in that is labor. It takes a lot of manual labor to sort through that stuff. And there's a breaking point to where it's not profitable. And, people who run for-profit companies like myself, can be unprofitable very quickly by trying to achieve those things.
How do our landfills look right now? Are they healthy?
The county has a landfill north of Definiak, but currently we have a contract with Waste Management that all the MSW is taken to a transfer station. It's loaded.
MSW is
household trash.
Okay.
Commercial waste, household trash. If it comes out of a store into a dumpster, that's all considered municipal solid waste. That's what MSW stands for. It goes into a truck and it's hauled to Jackson County to Waste Management's landfill in Spring Hill. And I think the current rate's about $50 a ton is what we pay. So we're paying the contractor to pick it up, then we're paying the contractor to haul it out of the county. I have some mixed emotions about that, and my position on that is no one really wants a landfill in their backyard. I get that. But if you become dependent on a private company for all of your disposal needs, you'll pay whatever they tell you you're going to pay. And as landfills become harder and harder to build and get permitted and pay for, only your municipalities and your billion-dollar companies can afford to operate. So I think it's important for Walton County to maintain the landfill that we have. I believe there's about 1,200 acres up there. I don't know exactly how much is permitted. Right now, they're operating what they call a Class 3 landfill, and a Class 3 landfill is for construction material, furniture, clothes, books, the things that are non-protrusible, which is not prone to rot, like food waste, things like that, that would bring in a lot of vermin and birds and those kind of things. But
do you know where we are in that capacity used of 1,200 acres?
Right now, we're not operating anything in the MSW side of it.
Oh.
I have some information. I want to look at what's current, what we have as an operational permit for the county through DEP. That's who manages these landfill permits. The only other landfill in Walton County is at Rock Hill. It's privately owned. The Hassel landfill, that's Class 3, same as the county. They don't take household waste. They only take C&D waste and Class 3 waste. So, and they're necessary. If you're going to build here, you're going to have waste, and it's got to go somewhere. So you got to have some way of dealing with those things. When I started looking at how disinterested some of our county officials were in putting this thing out for bid, because it was easier just to extend it. In their mind, if it's not broke, let's not mess with it and take the easy path. I started questioning how many other processes do we have in this county that is the opinion that, well, we've always done it that way, so let's leave it alone. I have a gut feeling that there's probably more than just waste that's a problem. And I intend to look at budgets and drill down and figure out where we're spending, and is it being managed correctly. And that's not a knock at any department head. That's not a knock at our county administrator. I think he needs to be given the ability to do his job, since he is new in that capacity, even though he was the assistant administrator at one time. I think it's only fair for him to be allowed to do his job first, because he hasn't had that long in it. And I'm certainly willing to give that levity and work very closely, because I really do believe that he does have Walton County's interest at heart. I do believe that.
I mean, I know it's an impossible number to really guess at, but what percentage do you think we're inefficient? I mean, we have a $300 million budget, somewhere around there. How much of it can we cut, be more efficient?
If I was guessing, I would just be guessing, and it wouldn't be fair for me to just throw a number, because it could. I like to be factual. I don't like to guess at anything. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I would like to follow back up on that. I can tell you this: if I'm fortunate enough to become county commissioner, I will answer those questions once I've delved into it and give you a more realistic number. But to guess at it is, I might as well pick lottery numbers.
Right. What do you think are the biggest cornerstone issues facing Walton County in the next 4 or 8 years?
A lot of people don't want to believe that that beach is probably one of the most major economic drivers of this county, but it is. But what I've seen is through regulation and ordinances and laws passed, that we are slowly strangling the golden goose that lays the golden eggs. And when those eggs stop being delivered, it's going to be a wake-up call for this county, because we're already making it not friendly to come to South Walton. No one wants to pay $10,000, $20,000 to bring their family down here to be yelled at by someone on the beach, or to sit behind rows of ghost chairs so they can't adequately get to their toddler who's playing at the edge of the water. And you're treated like a third-rate citizen by, just being a tourist here. There's no place to park. So it's easier now and cheaper to go to other places without that drama that surrounds your vacation. So I think we have got to refocus, become more public friendly, and there's things that we have to do to reverse what's going on. I know HB 631, that's a settled issue. Okay, we can beat that horse.
Is it a settled issue? I mean,
we voted. Our commission voted to settle. They can't go back on that now. There are things that are going to that can be done, I think, to help minimize what that created.
I guess when I say settled, the enforcement side of it is where I think there's still some ambiguity on how exactly it's going to be handed down, because, I mean, sure, you can say this is my beach and get off, but
well, I think there's some inherent problems there, and I can look at both sides of that equation. Okay, if I was a beachfront property owner and I had a bunch of belligerent people yelling, cussing, coming up on my deck, taking my chairs, leaving garbage all over the beach, yes, I would take issue with that. Okay,
you could call the sheriff, and
sure, there's other remedies for that. We have code enforcement. It seems like we have more enforcement than we have people needing enforcing. So, but there should be a friendly approach to that, not a do as I say approach to it. I'm an advocate for expanding our public beaches.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The county would just need to buy more property.
Well, I think I do think the county needs to buy property that's available, that can be budgeted properly, and if there's a house that becomes available next to public beach access, we should advocate to buy it. And they could tear the house down, create parking where the house is, and then expand the public beach access. Because now at some of these public, if you call it a public beach access, it's a public walkway to the water. There's a beach on both sides of it.
Right.
But start expanding that, because you don't have room to sit on a bath cloth out there right now, much less a beach towel. We should be spending money on those items. And where does that money come from? It may come from the TDC has money coming in, bed tax money. My personal view is that we can restrict back the amount of advertising in Atlanta and Nashville and Birmingham and Houston, because they all know we're here. If you don't believe it, look at the tags and the traffic backed up.
But the TDC is required to spend a certain amount.
Oh, no, I understand that. Yeah. And I get that. And I'm not talking about going against anything that is in place, but there's things that we can do within that framework to allocate money. No, the TDC currently does spend money on public beach access.
Right.
They do spend money on buying property. I think we spent close to $12 million on that piece of property in the Sandroy, with no parking. It's a beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful piece of property. I think we should have bought it. I'm not against that at all. Matter of fact, anytime the county can obtain green space for its citizens, I'm a huge advocate for that. It's like this property here. This is a wonderful, beautiful piece of property, but the way we're going, these types of properties are crammed with as many houses as we can legally stick on them.
Right.
And there's not a lot of open spaces, especially south of Freeport, because land is such a commodity and so valuable. People, don't want to, they don't want to spend what it's going to take to acquire those larger pieces of property and not profit off of it.
Yeah, we were talking a second ago about, the labor pool here and how that can be a barrier to entry for, new businesses, new startups. And, it all kind of leads back to a thread of infrastructure,
well, it's also affordability. You can't create $115 an hour jobs and expect to staff it when an apartment starts at $1,800.
Right. I mean, if you're a believer in the good old philosophy of supply and demand, you got to have more supply to bring down the price as demand goes up. And so, you do have to cram houses into as much density as possible. And
You do, but what I've noticed is by cramming those has not reduced the price of anything. That it just creates more profit for the people who are building. That seems to be what's going on now. But one of the things that I have found out is that if there was a Lockheed Martin or an Amazon or someone who wanted a distribution center in Walton County, we would have to get back with them in about 3 years because we'd have to find some property, get it rezoned, and get it ready. We're not shovel ready for anybody that shows up. So people go, well, we need to attract more jobs. To where? Where are we going to put them? I'm not talking about a mom and pop that opens up a sandwich shop. I'm talking about manufacturing jobs, more career-oriented jobs, the higher-paying jobs, where someone can come in at 20 years old and put 20, 25 years in and actually have, a livable retirement in their future. Those jobs don't exist because we're not ready for those. We can't even have a conversation with anyone because we have nothing. And I think it's important as a county that we create an economic zone or an industrial zone to where you can go to someone like a Lockheed Martin or an Amazon. And Defuniak, that area is ideal for it because you have the I-10 corridor and you have a rail spur that runs through there. Those things are very valuable to big companies that are trying to move commerce, out of an area.
So what comes first, the chicken or the egg, the major corporation that shows interest, or, having the infrastructure in place, build it and they will come?
I think it's a build it and they will come. Look at Mossy Head, that industrial park out there, it's set somewhat vacant for a while, but that was our economy. And now it's full. Freeport Industrial Park, it's full. There are companies that want to relocate here, but the further you go north, the cheaper the cost of living is. And of course, that changes over time. But you wouldn't put an Amazon in South Walton. It just economically wouldn't make much sense. But you can put it in the middle of the county. You can put it in Defuniak in those areas. And it's just a matter of being proactive and looking at what options are available out there.
Well, what do you think the people who have controlled those movements, those decisions, those strategies, those tactics? I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time around infrastructure and preparing the economy for new business and all these sorts of things. The infrastructure to lower housing costs. It doesn't seem like much is moving in the direction of getting those mechanisms.
Because historically, they're only political talking points. That sounds good. It tickles the ears of the voters, and it sounds really nice. But it's time to put words to action. Again, I'm not a politician. I've never been a politician. I'm a businessman, and I look at things from a businessman's perspective. And I realize to have a workforce, you have to have affordable housing. I realize to have affordable housing, you have to have infrastructure. But one of the misnomers is that the county commissioners do not will everything in the county. There are things that are controlled by the state. You can be mad about Highway 20. You can be mad about 331. But your county commissioners can put pressure on Tallahassee, as they should. Your state representative should put pressure on Tallahassee. And the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, we're not loud enough. We're not squeaky enough. But we need to also be looking internally of things that we've got to do. If there's expansion grants, go after them. And I don't know that they are or they aren't. I have no idea how many different things are in place or in the works right now. I'm sure I'll get read into those things as time goes on.
Do you remember when the penny sales tax was on the referendum?
I do.
And, I was in favor of the tax, even though that's generally contrary to my political philosophy of,
less tax.
Less tax. but I was in favor of that tax for specific reasons. And so, I paid a little bit more attention. I actually did a few episodes on advocating for the passage of that tax.
Yes.
And a couple of data points that were interesting to me. I believe the advocates for that tax came up with a list of projects that were sort of in planning or on the board, but there really wasn't funding for these infrastructure projects that we're talking about. It was something like $90 million a year right off the bat we needed just to get caught up and then stay ahead of the curve for the next, 5 or 6 years. And I think the penny sales tax was going to provide something like $40 or $45 million extra dollars that we could spend on those items that we didn't have to really go and get approval or change the budget or deal with the state on coming up with those funds. So I said all that to say, it seems like funding for these projects, it seems to me everyone recognizes that they need to be brought into life. Nobody's really against them, although there is a certain crowd of people who not in my backyard and are particularly anti-development. But from the business community, it seemed like everyone, and the political community seemed like we recognize these projects need to come to life, but there's just no money for them, and then that sort of bolsters the contrarians to the tax, because they say, oh, we've got a $300 million budget, and where's all this money being spent? We should have money for this. We're spending money on a golf course, and we're spending money on bathrooms in Grayton Beach. I mean, we're misappropriating funds. But it's more complicated than that.
It is far more complicated than that. And what I have noticed is that it's usually very small groups that are the loudest. And I think that we did a poor job in lobbying for that tax. I myself was for it, but we didn't do a good enough job in selling it. And the people that were against it did a much better job of selling why not to have it, and therefore we don't have it. But I'm sure plenty of the people who were against that would be very much in favor or in agreement that we need infrastructure.
Seems like that was the common thread. No one really disagreed on the fact that these projects...
It was just how to pay for it.
Right.
Now, for me, you can either let the residents' taxpayers pay for it, or you can share that cost with our tourism, and that's where the sales tax balanced that. Which made it would have a lesser impact on those of us that pay property taxes, and it's kind of a share cost with our tourists. But we killed that, and that's the same thing for the penny sales tax that covers our solid waste. That's why no one writes a check for their garbage service in Walton County. It's because of that 1 cent sales tax. I think we have gotten behind the curve in a really bad way in our infrastructure. There seems to be no slowing down. I see it in my business. It's wide open, and there's a tipping point to where there's failure. And do we just continue to the point of failure, or do we try to make some extreme changes to try to get ahead of it? And we have to get focused. It seems like we play a game of whack-a-mole. Something sticks its head up, so we give it a little bit of attention, and then this one rears up and give it a little bit of attention, but we don't really focus in to create the cure for one issue at a time, and let's get it off the table. We're better at being ineffective at a lot of things than very effective at just a few things, and then working our way through. And some of that's just mindset, and I'm not saying that anybody who has been on the board or been a department head in our county has ever done anything wrong. It's just that sometimes you need a fresh set of eyes and a fresh way of thinking to look at the problem. And that's what I hope to bring to the table.
My concern is that people like me who have never held that position before, like you, you get in there and then you realize what the real limitations are of an individual county commissioner.
Sure.
And then it becomes, well, there's nothing I can do about it. where I hope people run when they run into those roadblocks, they continue to be a strong advocate for whatever those processes are, whatever those mechanisms are that need to change. And maybe at the state level with the comprehensive land use plan, that's a huge document that apparently we didn't have a lot of, input on writing way back when. Walton County didn't have a document, and so the state gave us their document and said, this is what you're going to do, and now we're kind of bound by, a document.
The rules of another.
The rules of the no that particularly probably don't work that well here in Walton County. They're different than Walton County, for instance. And so
Walton County is very unique. We're not like Okaloosa County, and we're not like Bay County, and in a good way. Our hike moratorium made Walton County extremely special. That we're not overrun with high-rise condos all the way down the beach. The north side of 38 does not have to rent sunshine from the south side, and I like that. I like the tranquility that this county has, and I hope that never changes. Talking about what county commissioners can do and what they can't do, there's got to be some unity, okay? It doesn't need to be a South Walton, North Walton constant headbutting. South Walton, I pay all the taxes. North Walton, well, we're the county seat. We're all Walton County. It's every one of us, from the Gulf to the Alabama state line. I've talked to people at the north end of the county that never once mentioned public beach access, because that's not their issue. They have issues that are very specific to their geographic location in this county. And there's people on the beach that don't ever think about a boat launch on the river. That's it. But you have to cater to all of those and what each individual area's needs are. It's not just one need or two needs. Someone in New Harmony is not complaining about the traffic on Highway 98 because they're not down there, So you got to look at the entire picture. Yes, this is the hot spot. We certainly have to deal with that. But I would like to see our commission a little more in unison with each other, instead of you help me get this and I'll help you get that. Because all the commissioners are elected by the county, and they are as beholden out of their district as they are within their district. And they should care about the areas outside of their district as much as the areas inside their district. And like I said, I may find myself, if I'm fortunate enough to get the support of Walton County and become commissioner, I may find myself in those situations. But I also realize that if I'm very passionate about something, I can explain it on the record in detail enough to where the no's against it will have to explain to their constituents why they voted no. And, one of the other things I thought about, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, is that you can't discuss what is on the agenda in advance of the commission meeting. But I intend to do a small podcast to explain why I voted, how I voted on every issue that comes before the board. So at least the people will know why I decided the way I decided. So they have full transparency of what I'm thinking.
Transparency is important, because then you just give the information and people can make their own decisions, Yeah. You have to have you have to have a clear look at what's being transparent. It has to be an honest look. It has to be a factual representation.
100%.
And I think that's hard to get, because not everything looks the same to everyone.
No, absolutely. It is.
Suzanne Harris is going to have a much different opinion than, someone who doesn't like Suzanne Harris.
No, I get that. I get that. But even someone like Suzanne Harris or Alan Osborne or any of these what I call controversial figures, there are things that are passionate to them. Okay, we do not have to agree on everything, but we can agree that her voice is just as important as anyone else's voice, and my voice is just as important as her voice. So there's not a flip of a coin, and one gets to rescind what their thoughts are. We all have to work together, and common sense should always prevail. What's good for the majority should be the rule. So and sometimes special interest winds up getting into the ear of people who make decisions, and it's not what's best for the majority. It becomes what's best for that special interest, and I have huge issues with that.
Well, let me ask you this hypothetically.
Sure.
If a project came before the board and you really didn't like it, you thought it was in the wrong spot, you thought it was the wrong use, you thought there was maybe some, dealings behind the scene that made it, questionably unethical, whatever, but it checked all the boxes, it met the future land use plan, the comprehensive use,
then I vote for it.
So that's your commitment that
if you don't like the rules, then change the rules. But if you are working within the four corners of our planning, technical review, land development, you got to pass it. You don't bend a rule, and you hold everybody to the same standard. If you don't like the rules, then you advocate to change the rule. But it's no different than the law. A judge doesn't get to bend the law. The law is the law. Just because that person, is that person, they shouldn't get a free pass because the law should apply equally to everyone. The rules should apply equally to everyone. Now the other side of that coin is if it doesn't fit, it doesn't pass. You've got to do your due diligence, and you have to make sure that your project complies. And that's my feeling on that. I am not anti-development. I am for managed development. I think that we have got to, and there's so much coming at us so fast, I don't think that our decision makers have adequate time to absorb the information. But one of the things that I also understand as a business owner, I have managers that I pay to make decisions. They don't need me making those decisions for them, because if I did, I didn't need them as a manager. As a board, if we have an engineer, I'm not an engineer. So who am I to question an engineer's decision? If an engineer comes and says, okay, this meets all the criteria, checks all the boxes, engineering-wise, why do we question that sometimes? They're either, we got to go get an engineering degree so we understand it. Well, we have to trust the people that we're paying. If we can't trust the people that we are paying, you replace the people that we're paying with people that you trust. But if not, you've got to allow them to do their jobs. But it seems like what happens is we have all these committees, all these planning boards, everything gets up to a final decision, and we throw a hand grenade into it because we have a question that should have been vetted before then. These packets are there. A county commissioner should be able to call an engineer and ask a question, not wait till it gets up there and then it gets bottlenecked and thrown out for the next meeting or the next meeting. As a businessman, I understand the cost of money. If you've got a multi-million-dollar project and it gets pushed 60 days, the interest clock still runs.
Right.
And there's a point to where profit becomes unprofitable. So that's a problem that I see as well. And that's one of the things as a businessman, I would like to bring that to the table and look at it through those type of eyes. And I'm not advocating a rubber stamp for anything, but I am for allowing the people that we've hired professionally to do certain tasks in this county to do their jobs. And it's not my job to do their job. It's okay to question. It's okay to expect answers, but I don't think it's okay to roadblock. I think that's especially if you're doing it for the appearance of catering to a certain group of people, and I see that happen.
Just a couple of other topics to bring up.
Sure.
Do you have any thoughts about the healthcare system in Walton County? Is it kind of grade would you give it? What do we need?
Well, we don't really have a grade. Thankfully, John Ward and his group purchased HealthMark, and it's going to restore some health care other than South Walton. I didn't mean to overlook Sacred Heart, but it's a long run from Gaskin to Sacred Heart. You need something far closer than that. I've been blessed to be a fairly healthy person, so I don't have a whole lot of interaction with healthcare. My wife has to make me go get my yearly checkup, and if I could figure out how not to do that, I wouldn't. But at my age, it's important that I do go get my screenings and go to healthcare. But I don't want to drive a county or two counties over. It would be nice to get it locally, and I am glad that that facility is soon to reopen.
And what about broadband access for Walton Countyans? I mean, when I moved here, that was always something people talked about, how terrible the internet service was. And, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's good. You kind of learn to live with it.
Well, you can take Freeport, for example. Freeport's data is almost non-existent during daylight hours. After everybody starts going to bed, you might get a little bit of signal, might be able to do anything. And I kind of stepped off into it the other day just by being informational. I had gotten news of a piece of property that had been leased by a tower company, and they were working through the permit process of erecting a tower somewhere between fourth quarter of this year and first quarter of next year. Well, a county commissioner can do nothing when it comes to the FCC. That's going to go at their pace. That's going to go at a cell company's desire to improve and do more. The county commissioner can do nothing more than help make sure that the zoning's correct, the permits the project gets approved. But I can tell you, we are definitely behind the curve. I did hear that there's some fiber being installed. We've become so dependent on the internet. A lot of people, I've heard them say, where are these people working that are living in all these homes? Well, COVID proved that we didn't have to get in a car and drive to a brick and mortar office to do a customer service job. You could do that from the luxury of your apartment or your home. And we have a lot of people moving in from New York and other locations that don't want to deal with their weather or their taxes or their politics. So they come down here. They still work for these companies that are maybe situated in New York or somewhere else, and they can do their job from home. So, but that is very internet dependent, very broadband.
Not in Freeport.
No, you got to be able to have voice over IP phones where they can just call forward this stuff. You got to have reliable internet connection so you can look at prompts and screens, and it's getting better, but it has got a long way to go. Our demand has far exceeded its availability, and they throttle it down. It's similar to like a water line. You can put a 4-inch water line down a road and be the only one at the end and have great water pressure. Right. But when they fill in the mile from there to the source and everybody starts taking off of it, you may get down to a trickle by the time it gets down to the end, and that's kind of where we're at now.
Right. And, I wouldn't even know how to guess how an individual county commissioner can advocate for, broadband development. Obviously, if a project came before the board and...
Well, you reach out to some of these providers and you assist them in getting their projects through the myriad of boards. So it doesn't take 3 years. That you don't. Well, let's talk about it more next meeting. You gotta help walk this stuff through the process and not leave everybody to their own devices at the planning department, hoping they can get through. Big companies won't come in and buy availability of property becomes an issue as well. You can't just put a cell tower anywhere you like. Our land use codes restrict where those things are going. So now you're starting to narrow it down, and they have a system of where these things are located. So because they repeat with each other, that's important. But as a commissioner, you make phone calls, you try to get answers, and extend the olive branch to assist and helping them make their customers happy.
Just thinking about all the work that a county commissioner could engage himself in. I mean, it's definitely a 120-hour-a-week job. I mean, he could be busy from sun up to sundown doing, advocating for different projects and staying on top of the organizational chart.
You got to stay off the golf course more.
Well,
you got to stay in your office more.
It's a full-time job with half-time pay. Should a county commissioner make more?
The county commissioner's pay is dictated by Florida statutes. It's not what we decide they're going to make, and that's based off of population. More population in Okaloosa County, they make more. More population in Bay County, they make more. If you're becoming a county commissioner for pay, you're already not the guy for the job, or the woman for the job. If you're going to be a county commissioner, that's not a career move. This is more of a civic move, that you want to do something for your community. And nothing wrong with them being paid and being paid adequately.
Right.
But I'm certainly not.
Clearly,
I'm not doing it for the money.
The way the job is presented today, nobody would do it for the money.
No, I made that comment the other day, that ideally, the ideal board would be made up of an engineer, a planner, a businessman, an attorney. If you could fill those spots with professional people,
right,
you would have an unbelievable board.
But here's my point. You find an engineer who's got the civic responsibility to not do it for the money just because they love it.
Yeah.
That narrows down your pool of candidates even further.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, maybe you just don't have as many of those professions willing to do it. So would you rather someone who was doing it because they loved it or they had some civic responsibility, or would you rather get the highest paid, best candidate, the Michael Jordan of engineers that, would come in and do the job? Because from my perspective, I want the best person in the seat, not the person who's...
Well, I understand that, but politics is not a resume. It's a popularity contest. It's like becoming homecoming king. You just get enough of your friends to vote for you, and you got the job.
Were you homecoming king?
Never. I was probably least likely to succeed.
So you went to my school.
Exactly. But the one thing that I hang my hat on, and it gets questioned, here's the other reason why good people don't run in politics, is because there's people out there that will take a good person and try to destroy them because they want their person to win at all costs. So I have never had my integrity attacked and my character attacked so much since I have joined this race.
And you want to address?
No, my son asked me, he said, Dad, why would you possibly want to do this?
Well, that's always my question. Why would anyone want to do this?
Well, my answer,
because the money's so...
Well, my answer to him was, if not me, who? And if not now, when? Somebody has to step up. And if you don't like what you're getting, and you think you can do it better, then you should join. There's so many naysayers out there that are quick to criticize a candidate, tell everything that they do wrong, but none of them have the guts to go drop their name in the hat and put themselves through that same process that they put the candidates that show up. And that in itself is a deterrent for good people. So give a person a chance before you destroy them before they ever get the opportunity. And I've seen some really good candidates that have run in the past that did not make it because of no one in this world is perfect. Unfortunately, Jesus Christ is not running for county commissioner. But if he did, there's going to be somebody that's going to find fault with him. Okay, I'm just a knock-knee country boy from Freeport, Florida, that managed to have a bunch of failures and then finally put one over the fence. Thank God that I wound up in that position. But I'm far from perfect. I make mistakes every day, but I learn from those mistakes. I own those mistakes. And if anyone has a question, all they have to do is ask me. They'll get the truth. Sometimes the truth is painful, but that's what they'll get. I don't dance around. I won't wordsmith them. But I do have issues with people who take a tagline and run with it. And if they'd read the whole article, they would have really answered their own questions. So I'm very big on being accessible. My phone number's published on my campaign bio. My email's published. As long as you're civil, we can always have a civil conversation on any topic. And I don't have any bones about that. If you ask me personal questions, I may answer. I may tell you it's none of your business. But on most items, I'm going to freely talk. And as you can already tell, I don't have any problems talking. So, but I will tell you this. I'm not doing this for everybody. I'm doing this for my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. Everybody else gets the residual benefit of what I'm trying to do for my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids. So that's my driving factor. And it's certainly not about $1. It's about my family saying our dad, our grandfather tried. And that's really all that matters to me. And win, lose, or draw, I have tried. But I'm going to do this one time. If I don't win, I won't ever try again. This is my window. And like I said, I have no desire to be a professional career politician. I want to come in and make a difference. And while most people are campaigning their fourth year, I'll be working my fourth year. And hopefully I have enacted enough change in that 4 years and created some models and some matrix that others can build off of. And that's my desire.
Well, Chuck, I really appreciate you sitting down with me and getting a chance to get to know you. And, this is true for all the candidates. I think it's very admirable that people put themselves out there and run for public office. It's a thankless job in a lot of ways.
Well, I'd like to end with one thing.
Please.
We are blessed to sit out here in this wonderful environment on Juneteenth.
That's right.
Being Juneteenth, I want to recognize Gladys Milton, who was instrumental and delivered many, many babies in this county.
Okay.
I'd like to Clinton Hooks, who was chief of police of Defuniak for many years. We got our great superintendent of schools.
That's why we moved here, was for the public schools, and we just couldn't be happier the way that our boys have thrived in the Walton County.
Well, Mr. Hughes, to my understanding, was voted the #1 superintendent in the state of Florida.
No surprise.
And he is an absolute blessing to this county and these communities. And I hope he sticks with it. As
he's got to come on here and tell us how he does it.
Absolutely. But anyway, the great leaders in the black community here with great people, in this county of all races. And I think it's important that we all look after each other and respect each other and love each other. And, we all just want to live our life and have a good life. And it should be as uncomplicated as we can make it.
Well said. Well, there you have it. What's the big idea with Chuck Wilder running for District 3 Board of County Commissioners? There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you as well.
Thank you.